Ooh. Hey, everybody. Hi. Hello. Welcome to whatever this is today. If anyone knows what's just like going on in the world, can you let me know? Oh my gosh. The past few days have been crazy, but I think through a whole bunch of nonsense and randomness and like what is transiting in the world, in the galaxy, in the solar system, in the universe. I think I've landed in a space that it's like everything is starting to make sense again from. Oh gosh, I don't know. It's fine. It's a lot, but it's fine. Anyway, so today I'm going to be using the dice. I don't see my D4. Well, maybe this one ain't going to have a D4. So I have the white set and I have the other set. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll the two D10s, and then the D20 will be plus the D8. No, the D20 is plus, the D8 is minus. D20 plus, D12 minus, D8 plus, D6 minus, and then the D4. I guess I could not use because I don't have it in the other one. And that'll be off of the value. And so it'll give, I guess, like four energies off of the main centralized one. And I'll just see what comes up. I've been wanting to use these, and this is how I figured I'd do it. I am really curious where that other D4 is now. Here it is. Okay, so I will use the D4. I don't know how I'll use the D4. I'll figure out the D4 when I get there. Maybe I'll take it as is. Excuse me. Yeah, I think I'll do that. And I'll take the D4 as is in the elemental sense. And we'll just see what's up. I'm going to take notes so I don't forget what this stuff is. And actually, since I have my computer, hopefully I can just pop up the list here. Maybe. I'm like, what am I looking for? Here it is. Yes, I did it. I converted it. Oh my gosh, now I can read. That's hot. Okay. So I have this. Let's do this. I need to make this a little smaller. Or I'll do this way. Because this is all I need. And then I can just pop up the notepad. Take notes. Ooh, I love that. Okay. All right. This is stuff I could have had figured out before, but it's fine. It's fine. Okay. Here we go. So I'll start with the purple set. So again, I'm going to center everything around the two D10s. And then the other ones will subtract and add from that to find a message around the message. Then there'll be two of them. Maybe they'll interact with each other. Maybe it'll be this side, that side. Maybe they'll be different. I don't know. I don't know anything. I kind of just show up and do what I feel like in the moment. And maybe that's the lesson. 77! Okay, come through, master number 77. I actually rolled a natural 20. No, that's a different 20. There's another 20 right there. I was like, oh, there's another 20. A 77, a 20, 77, 22, two sixes, and two twos. 77, 20, 6, 2, 6, 2. Okay. 77 is a court energy, I believe. I think I know which one it is. Yeah. We're starting with the Sage of Souls, which is interesting. Okay. And then so that'll be 57, which is the 8 of zones. And then we have, oh girl, math 83, which is Virgo. And then 75, which is the Scholar of Souls. Oh, I love this. And then, hold up, can I math? Oh, they're the same number. So Virgo again. This is a lot of fire and a lot of Virgo. And then the element of earth. How am I going to read this? So the Sage of Souls is an interesting energy. The journey of souls is all about us coming to the truth of who we are. It's one of the ones that it's like the path itself doesn't necessarily change. It's just a measure of our progression on it. Now, what's also interesting is that there was this thing on the internet. It was like a promotion. And it was like, there's the chaos mage who was like, I'm the reason why you roll ones and everything falls apart. And then there was the good wizard, and he was like, I'm the one, like, I'm the reason why you get all the 20s. I'm responsible for the good things. And the bad dude is responsible for all the bad things. And the bad dude was like, I bet the good dude told you that I was responsible for everything bad. He ain't wrong, but like, I'm like real, right? He'll try to like pretend like stuff ain't happening or whatever, but the world ain't like that. There's darkness in the world. And then it was like, or you can choose both sides and let the world decide its own fate, basically. And I chose both sides. But on the dark side, the natural 20 came out, which is interesting because typically that's like it's the number attributed to the other side. And I haven't rolled a 1 or a 20 with these yet. And I was like, oh, I'll just wait and see. Like, will I roll a natural 1 with this set or will I roll a natural 20 with the other? So I rolled a natural 20, but it's on the wrong set. And this is all based around the energy of the Sage of Souls. It feels like it's an energy that's something like basically it's like when you go through something not great, but it ends up working to your benefit. And so there's an energy here of taking the bad and making it better, turning lessons into blessings, right? Hey, Zelda, not much. I couldn't see your chat for a second because I had my notepad window. How are you doing? I hope you're doing well. Well, how are you doing, Zelda? I moved the thing now so I can see your chats. This is interesting. Also, there's like 222 here. There's 20 and then two twos. 2022 is next year. Making sure you're going to be better. I'm glad to hear it. And then there's a lot of Virgo energy. Eight of Zones is an energy of the Eight of Swords. And I was just thinking of the number 8 earlier today. And sometimes I refer to the number 8 as a trap. But it feels like the number 8 is patterned. It's basically a trap, but it's cycles and patterns. And the end of one is the beginning of another. And at the point of intersection, one may overlap the other, or you may get like a true legitimate intersection. It can be an underpass overpass situation or an intersection, like four-way stop type of situation. And the Eight of Cups and the Eight of Swords is about recognizing and escaping patterns and habits. The Eight of Pentacles and the Eight of Wands carry more like of a positive sort of connotation. It's the energy of momentum. The Eight of Swords and the Eight of Cups is like kind of sort of a negative momentum that we need to break. Eight of Wands, Eight of Pentacles is a positive momentum. Now, Wands momentum is really fast. Earth momentum is not as fast. But this is the Eight of Swords. And so it's an energy that is almost invisible. Like there's something that happened that we perceive as bad, or like there was something good that happened, but we perceive it as misfortune for some reason. And with the Sage of Souls, I don't think it's necessarily related to the truth of who we are, but it could be. But it's an energy. There's like a little bit of a past life trauma y type of energy here. It's an energy of like having a certain way of thinking about something without necessarily having the basis for it in this lifetime. It's like you just feel some type of way about something and you don't really know why. You never really questioned it. It's just something that it just is what it is. It's like a gut instinct almost, right? And so I think that's what's not being seen with the Eight of Zones. That's also all right. See you later, Zelda. Have fun. And I hope you do better soon. Um, Also, like from the eight to the nine, nine being the number of completion, it's like somehow it's like you gotta see your way out of it. I don't know why it's like when people are like, this is an A and a B conversation, so you can see your way out. Let me try to consolidate my thoughts. So there's an energy of like a preconceived notion. There's a thought pattern. There's something established without any current incarnation reason necessarily for it to be that way. The Eight of Swords, then Eight of Zones, then comes in as this energy of like accepting it without necessarily knowing why, but it's seeing it that way. And then we have this double Virgo energy, but it feels like it's a competing Virgo energy. Like there's a part that's like, this is something that we need to let go of. This is something that needs to be purified. But then there's another part that's like, well, it makes sense. So, like, why would we get rid of it? Maybe we should try to integrate it even more. And then with the Scholar of Souls here, this is so interesting. I'm like, what is this? Can I get a clarifier or am I just going to struggle with this? So, like I said, the path of souls is already established. It's one that doesn't change. It's not like the path of essences, or not essences, well, kind of essences, or the paths of either zones or realms, like earth or air. Fire is established. It's our discovery of the element and our learning to use the element as it is. Fire, it's an element that we only control really by how much fuel we give it or how much space we allow for it to sort of burn. But besides that, it's not like water or air or earth where we kind of sort of work with it a little bit more. Air can be another element that we don't necessarily have too much control over. but it's like it's not necessarily malleable, but we understand its properties in a way to make it basically benefit us. So there's this play between the sage and the scholar. Oh, well, one is the teacher, the other is the student. That would be the easiest way to take it. They both come out with a Virgonian energy, and then that eight of zones is between them. Now, eight of zones can be a space of mental conflict, and we have the element of earth here. So, what it does is it manifests a lack of being able to stabilize something in the physical. It's like it's a land where well, there are many parts of the world where you wake up and the weather is one way, halfway through the day, the weather is another way, a few hours later, it's another way, and by the time you go to bed, it's completely different. Now, this isn't necessarily us just like wearing layers when we go outside. If it gets colder, you put on more layers. If it starts to precipitate, you bring an umbrella. If it gets warmer, you take off layers. But maybe it is like that with the eight of zones and all this Virgonian energy. And it's like it reminds me of Shrek when he was like, ogres are like ogres are like onions, and Donkey was like, they smell, and he's like, no, we have layers. And he was like, well, why didn't you just say it's a parfait? That like, why didn't you just say it's a parfait energy is kind of sort of here in the natural 20, coming out on the set of dice where that shouldn't be the case. That eight of swords energy is in here like heavy. There's so much like it's not necessarily illusion, but it can be so easily misconstrued. And maybe Virgo is the approach to it. Virgo carries an energy of thinking and reasoning. And when it comes to the element of fire, like I said, either we can control the amount of fuel it has or we can control how much space it has to burn. And so it's like us reasoning our way into doing anything or reasoning our way into seeing something from a certain position. And so there is an energy here of manipulating truth between the sage and the scholar of souls. And I don't know which one is doing it. I don't think it necessarily matters. But it's an energy of like twisting logic to make something appear the way that we want to make it appear. But when we do that, it muddies our interaction with the element of earth because the element of earth is one of establishment. It's not air or water or even fire where you can sort of change direction at any moment and the element just continues to flow. Earth needs more consistency than that. In double Virgo, it feels like an energy of like quicksand or a sinkhole or the sudden appearance of like a fissure. Because what it'll do is it's like if you try to give the element of earth too many directions, then it's like it breaks itself apart or it creates an area that tries to take on a different element. But us being in that space, it's like we get stuck. And the more we try to like shift it to make it work, the more we sink into it. What is this? I actually have another set of dice that look just like this one. So I'm going to pull that one for clarifiers. When it comes to the other set, I don't have a set that looks like it. So the other side don't get no clarifiers, but this gets clarifiers because I don't know what this is. And like the thing I like about the dice is that they're open ended. The thing that I don't like about the dice is that they're open ended. But the element of zones, it's important for establishing the realm. Air is important for establishing Earth. But it's an Earth space that can't be established because eight is like it's the eight, it's the trap. It's a sand pit. Nothing. It's like everything. It's like one of those tar pits. It's like whenever you like whatever went into the tar pit got stuck in the tar pit, and it's perfectly preserved as it sinks to the bottom of whatever. And in a few thousand years, or in hundreds of years, or even in millions of years, you'll dig it up and you'll see it, almost like a Pompeian energy. But it's not volcanic, is it? I mean, there is like the Sage of Souls, like King of Wands, Knight of Wands energy. Lots of Virgo. Mutability in Earth can lead to like stress and strain, like I said. That could, I don't want to say ejaculate because I feel like that's not the word I want, but it's like that pressure under, like when the plates shift and stuff and they cause pressure, maybe it creates a vacuum that pushes the magma up from under the crust and it puts it out. Again, it's this energy of like something kind of being in a space that it's not supposed to be or that we wouldn't think that it's in. Here's this set. Okay, I'm gonna try to keep these separate. I need some clarification on this. I don't know how I'm gonna do these, but okay. Oh, please don't. Please don't. Whew, okay, it's 96. I thought it was gonna give me more Virgo. I saw 90 and I was like, please not more Virgo. 1 second. Ooh. So let me come back over here. How am I doing this? So now we have Saturn. I like Saturn, but I don't know how I feel about it in this space. Because it feels like Saturn is coming in to try to overly fix this. And it may apply too much force. Should I read these? I'll read these as they are instead of doing the whole adding and subtracting thing. So Saturn is here. Pisces is here. Temperance is here. Fire. Who is this? The throat. Solar. Oops, that is not how you spell throat. Solar plexus. Oops. Oops. Oh, come on. Solar. The and fire. Okay. Let's try it. Oh, my head just started to hurt. Oh, there's the headache. So there's this energy of the Sage and the Knight of Souls. The Eight of Zones, which is, again, eight is the number of, it's a trap. Double Virgo and the element of Earth. Now, Temperance is all about balance. It's about equalizing. Temperance is carrying an equalizing energy. And then Saturn comes in. I think Saturn, it's playing a limiting role. It's almost like it's trying to not preserve or prevent. It's trying to limit the amount of damage that happens while the Earth is in such a mutable state. It tries to make certain things immutable. Now the element of fire is here. I don't need these. Well, I guess I'll just keep them on. The element of fire is here in response. With the throat and the solar plexus, what it's doing is it's carrying an energy. For me, I'm the type of person that like I can hear stupid better than like I can catch it if I hear it auditorially outside of me in a way that's different than in my own head. Like in my own head, it's like I can make sense out of anything. But when I'm hearing it, I can notice easier when it doesn't make sense. And I say hear stupid because like that's why I need to talk to myself out loud sometimes because in my head I can make it make sense. But if I'm talking, then I'm like, oh wait, that didn't sound right. That doesn't sound right. And that energy is here between like with the throat. So it feels like there's all of this like internal action. There's like this heavy focus on sort of like aligning to a certain soul path. But the problem is that it's that reasoning energy. It's like we're sitting at the space of the scholar of souls. We're heading towards the position. No, we're sitting at the space of the scholar of souls. We're heading towards the position of the sage. We think that it is a certain thing. And so this double Virgo energy and the eight of zones, eight of swords energy, it's like it's shifting and mutating things to look the way that we think it's supposed to look. And so what it does is it creates sinkholes and tar pits and quicksand traps in like our lives, basically. And it's carrying this energy of like, if it continues at this rate, then it's like the sinkholes and the tar pits and the quicksand, it'll start to connect to where the whole planet is just like one big pit. Basically, what happened to the dinosaurs, where they all disappeared, and some of them are pretty well preserved. It's like sinking into the earth. It's like that's one of the ways that Earth can sort of reset itself. But when Earth resets itself in that way, it preserves. And that's the blessing. If Earth reset in fire or even somewhat in water, then we wouldn't be able to recognize as easily what came before. And that's like again, maybe that's the why the 20 is here. Like that's the good thing in a not that great space. If it fell apart now, at least it would fall apart in a way that preserves it. So it would be less likely, hopefully, for us to make the same mistakes again. Because we can literally look at the fossils and be like, oh yeah, last time we tried to do that, it didn't work. Everything burned up in the fire, so there's nothing that we have then. We don't know why the earth just like shifted poles and reset everything. Okay. And so then over here, Saturn is coming in a karmic way. Pisces is coming in the way of a visionary. Temperance is bridging the gap between where we are and the desired reality or where we're going. The throat and the solar plexus, it's an energy of collaboration and an energy of community and an energy of basically it's like Aquarian larger scale agreements, larger scale things that benefit more and more people. And then with the element of fire, it's like it's bringing the vision to life. And so also with Saturn, what it's going to do is, and it did just like conjunct Pluto, and Pluto is still in its home sign of Capricorn. It's like Saturn is going to, in some ways, transform it. In other ways, it's just going to make it really visible. Like, we'll be able to see this before it falls apart. So if it falls apart, it's basically because we chose for it to. So that's this. That could be collectively or in your personal life. I don't know where that applies or what this is, but that's what it's feeling like. The numbers in this set: 77, 20, 6, 6, 2, 2. From the other set, it's 96, 14, 12, 5, 3, and 4. Okay. So that was this. I'm actually going to put these back in their little bag because I don't want to mix them up. I don't know why. It's like literally they would all be in one bag or the other bag, but I took it all down in my notepad. So, whew, goodness. I haven't said, welcome to Cassandra's Tarot Dice and Spiritual Advice. My name is Patrick. This is Real Corey. Let's get into it in a minute. Cassandra was the person who warned the. Who were they? She basically warned them to be careful of accepting gifts from Troy. And they sent in the horse. They brought in that big old horse, and they was like, "Oh snap! Everything is cool now. They gave us a horse." And then the soldiers popped out of that horse and started going ham. But Cassandra was like, "Don't do it." But ain't nobody listen. Cassandra was gifted. Cassandra was given the gift of prophecy by Apollo, but then later cursed that no one would believe her. Now, apparently, either they had an agreement or didn't have an agreement. Cassandra was supposed to give herself to Apollo. She decided not to after he gave her the gift. Maybe she asked for the gift, maybe she didn't ask for the gift. Maybe he just thought it would work and she would just throw herself on him. But she said, nah. And then he was like, well, I can't take away the gift that I gave you, but I can add some stipulations onto it. And I guess that could also be the case because, again, there's this 20 here on the space of like where it should have been that natural one. Sometimes gifts are blessings. It's into the woods. Wishes may bring problems such that you regret them. Better that though than to never get them. But they may bring problems, the things you wish for. A lot of reasoning here, but it doesn't look like it's actually benefiting. Okay, other side, other side. Let's see what we get. Is this no? So it's 81, or is that 61? Nope, that's 81. 81 is Cancer. Okay, we're starting with Cancer. This is interesting. So then we go up 5, which is 86, which is Sagittarius. Oh, that was 96 that I just got. And then we go down 8. So that's 73. Oh gosh, maybe I should have used my calculator. Oh, that's the 10 of souls, like 10 of wands energy. Oh, not bad though. We'll see. And then we go up 6, which is 87, which is Capricorn. So there's some progression here. But with the 10 of wands between Sagittarius and Capricorn, it's not easy. And then we go down 4, which is 77, right? 81. Yeah. So we're back at the Sage of Souls again. Okay. The Sage of Souls, apparently. And then we have the element of fire. Okay. So the numbers here, it's 81, 5, 8, 6, 4, and 4. Hmm. So Cancer is the space of the home. Cancer is the space of the emotions. Cancer is this. It's the face of the moon, but it's the side of the moon that we always see. Even when we don't see the moon, the same face is facing us. We never see the other side because of astrophysics. Then we have Sagittarius and Capricorn, bridged by the Ten of Souls, and then the Sage of Souls and the element of fire, which is souls in this system. Until I rewrite it. This is like version 1. I'll probably have a few versions. I think I want to remake the Diceology deck. I mean, that's not new, but I'm actually gonna. Why didn't I think of pulling those? I'm gonna pull one of those. Oh my gosh. I made those about a year ago. Let's see. It's these cards. You can see the dice. I'm using dice. If well, you can tell from the picture probably. Okay, give me like one card or like no limitations. Just there we go. It flipped over. It's the Two of Hearts. Being between worlds, a vision brought to life, choices that require foresight and communication. 37, 6, 11, 2, 6, and 3. If y'all can see, I mean, it's backwards, but. And now it's on the table. Okay. It fell right on top of this 5. 5 is like Hierophant energy. Bottom of the deck is the 9 of spades. It was in reverse. A swaying tower that is moments from toppling, clouded vision and burning lands, and a powder keg. And that just popped off. Under that in reverse is the 4 of swords, or 4 of spades, an arrow that swims through the air, forced pliability, and a fixed vision in a volatile space. Okay. Maybe I should have actually tried before I just went right to the cards, but that's fine. Sagittarius. Okay. Sagittarius is an energy of, it's like a global energy. It's an energy of other people, other customs, other cultures, other lands, and how they live. Capricorn is an energy of foundations. Now, with Cancer being sort of like the main hub of all of this energy, it's like we've been around the world, we see different perspectives. We're trying to create a foundation that benefits everybody, or at least more people. But the pathway from Sagittarius to Capricorn has the Ten of Wands energy in it. And not only are we trying to do that, but it's like we're trying to bring that into our home. So we're trying to make our home more accommodating. And it feels like the hang up here comes when people aren't satisfied or when people aren't happy. Because it's like the intention is there, but then it's like Cancerian energy gets a little triggered, and it's like, well, if you don't like my hospitality, you don't have to be here. You can leave. You can go to your own home where they do everything the way where they used to do it. And it's like, okay, well, fair, but also it's like if this is your intention, if this is what you're trying to do with this space, regardless of if that space is yours or not, then in some ways you have to be open to the feedback if that's truly your intention. And it isn't, I feel like it isn't necessarily said spitefully, but it feels like it's coming from a space of constructive criticism. Maybe you've done a lot and you're still like, nothing is ever enough, right? With the 10 of souls here. Now, with this being souls instead of the 10 of wands, the energy carries one of the like the spiritual quest and the spiritual journey of the 10 of wands. It's one that's not necessarily easy, but it's one full of purpose. And then the sage of souls is here. with the element of fire. It's like if we can build this bridge, if we can expand the home to be more accommodating and to be more inclusive, that's going to get us closer to the energy of divinity, with the Sage of Souls being that energy of divinity. There's also a sort of a fiery connection between people. And the fiery connection, instead of a watery one, it feels like it's a deeper connection. It's a more pre or post incarnate connection. It's like water bridges us like in this lifetime. But when it go like it bridges hearts. Fire bridges souls, basically. This is also it's carrying the energy of like Sagittarius is the philosophy, Capricorn is the practice. Capricorn is the structure, it's the foundation, it's tangible. It's not just an idea that we have. And what's kind of not necessarily wild about this is, again, with this all being centered around Cancerian energy, it feels like it's, even though it's a shared space or it's supposed to be a shared space, it feels like someone already calls this space home. And so someone has a little bit more of a say. Now, these cards, being between worlds, the energy of like being between worlds and the tower that is swaying and the arrow that is swimming through the air, it's an energy that's kind of sort of, it's not necessarily unstable. It is. It's very unstable. But it's not, it's an energy of balancing and a struggle of balance, trying to maintain a balance. I think being between worlds, it's like we're living 3D and we're trying to get to 5, right? But to get to 5D, especially in the way that we've been collectively manifesting Age of Aquarius energy, there's a fairness and there's a justice, there's a consideration and an inclusion of all. And right now, things aren't necessarily balanced between everybody. And so there are going to be people who probably feel like they're losing out in some ways. And that's not necessarily the case. On the other side of that, there are going to be people who have carried certain things, going back to the 10 of Wands energy. There are going to be people who have carried like baggage for a long time. And it's like soul level baggage. It's done enough. I don't really want to use the word damage, but there's not another word coming to my mind. It's done enough damage that it's gone like beyond the heart. It's gone beyond the mind. It's caused like a fracturing, a splintering of souls on both sides, on all sides. And so maybe that's why like shadow work is so important for everyone as we move forward. Because I feel like if it wasn't damage done on that deep of a level, then things would be a lot quicker. They would happen with less resistance. It'd be like, oh, well, here's a new law, here's a new establishment. All of a sudden, things are just like better, right? If it were more surface level, but it goes beneath the surface. It's like souls have warped, which isn't surprising. If a heart and a mind is warped for long enough, eventually it'll wear on the soul. And then it kind of sort of takes me back over here where it was like we had the Sage of Souls, but also the Knight of Souls or the Scholar of Souls. We had the Sage and the Scholar. and there's an energy of like needing to bridge the gap there. Bridging the gap there was a lot of Virgo, and it was 8 of zones. It's this energy like where we think we're bridging the gap, but unbeknownst to ourselves, unbeknownst, that's the word, right? Basically, we're still carrying forward and we're still preserving things without the awareness of it. We may not necessarily see it, but we're still perpetuating things. And then that energy again, it echoes over here in the form of the 10 of Souls, 10 of Wands, where it's like we're trying to build, we're trying to be more inclusive, but at the same time, there's this energy of direct competition with the things that we're trying to keep. And then if we echo this energy back, that's that double Virgo trying to like, it's like when you see people putting the Rubik's cube together, it's trying to like fidget and like get everything to move in a way that it isn't necessarily gonna gonna work. So these are connected. Work. And I like that Cancer came out because that's the energy where it's most important. The rules can change, the laws can change, systems can change, the whole planet can change. But if that change doesn't happen in the heart, there's a lot of there's a lot of darkness that will use a closed heart as a portal, as a gateway, as a point of entry into your current reality. And as long as those hearts remain closed and unchanged, it will continue to perpetuate itself, even if everything wears the facade of paradise and utopia. On the inside, it'll be the same. Actually, it'll kind of sort of fester more in direct opposition to the more glamorized facade on the outside. It's an increasing of the tension on that polarity. That's why sometimes when you try to fake happiness on the outside, more you feel even worse on the inside. And it reminds me of, I know I was using the Damon Tarot, and there was one of them who was responsible for like, it was like he gets workers or he builds bridges or he can form connections, but the epitome of his gift or the highest sort of vibration of that gift is connecting people who otherwise can't see eye to eye or who are sort of on different sides of that polarity. It's reducing the tension. And I feel like a lot of times we have the idea of polarity that we have because there is so much tension in all of them. It's like if every rubber band that you ever came across was stretched out to its limit, to the point like beyond its modulus of elasticity or whatever the word was that I forgot. If every single rubber band that you came across was like all stretched out or snapped, you wouldn't know that, they actually bounce back or that they can be used to bind things. Like you stretch it out, you put it in, and then it conforms to where it is. And I think that's like the sort of Sagittarian into Capricorn. It's like instead of necessarily, and this may be more life than like government in this sense at least, but it's like if you start with a bigger vision and then hone in, it's easier to accommodate for everything than if you start at a pinpoint and then try to expand out. Because when you start at a pinpoint and then expand out, it's like it creates that sort of pyramid shape, like a pyramid scheme. It creates different strata of like elevation because there's the people who were in the pinpoint from the beginning, and then there's the people who were included here, the people who were included there. It creates this layered and tiered effect rather than going like Jupiter to Saturn instead of like Saturn to Jupiter. And it's interesting because when it comes to when it comes to dealing with people in real life, whenever there's a new teacher, I'm like they should take the Saturn to Jupiter approach. Like you can't be, I don't want to say you can't be, in the previous energy and my experience of going through public school and the place I went through public school, it's like if you try to go from Jupiter to Saturn, that transition is a lot more difficult. You got to go from Saturn to Jupiter, because if kids don't respect you, if kids think that they can walk all over you or do whatever they want in your class, it's going to be hard. Like, it's easier to start strict and then ease up. I had a teacher, her name was Mrs. Meeker or Miss Meeker. When I first had her, I thought she was like super mean. Then she eased up and I was like, oh snap, she's actually like cool. She just won't she don't put up with, tolerate a lot of nonsense and foolishness. And in high school, I had a teacher, Miss Sue Lao Shi. She was my Chinese teacher. She started like super nice. I think she also started out like feigning ignorance. It's like she used her sort of like foreign status to pretend like she didn't understand some of the things that people were saying. But because she did that, it's like people got even more and more rude and disrespectful. I've never heard anybody talk to somebody like that in real life, let alone a student to a teacher. But she would always sort of like shrug it off, or she just gave off an air of like she didn't understand. So, of course, the people who are already going to act up in class anyway, they get bolder and bolder. And then there was this other teacher, and I'm like, does she know what they're saying to her? And he was like, yeah, she knows. And I'm like, well, why isn't she saying anything? Because it was uncomfortable for me as a student. Apparently, it wasn't uncomfortable enough for me to be like, hey, like, show some respect in class. Maybe if I could go back and do it all over again, I would. I wasn't necessarily the type of person to use my voice, regrettably, in the past. One of the things that I regret the most is not speaking up for one of my best friends. Um, but anyway, regrets really shape us in some ways. Some not that great ways, some positive ways, until the foundation of that power shifts, at the very least. Anyway, I would say in life, it's easier to start stricter and then ease up than it is to go from like not that strict to more strict. Because then it's like, well, we used to be able to get away with this. We used to do that, even though you knew it was wrong. Even when people know that what they're doing is wrong, just the fact that they can get away with it or that it's not enforced, it's like, oh, well, then it doesn't matter. On a certain level, it should matter because, if we know it's wrong, we shouldn't do it, regardless of whether we'll be caught or not, regardless of whether it's enforced or not. And maybe that's a lesson that we'll also be coming into here fairly soon. Just because the rules or the laws change doesn't mean that the situation and scenario has. And we also saw that in the form of some of the social, I guess, progress that we've seen in this country. And then you replace the person at the top, and everything that was hidden and repressed just comes all the way out. And then you got some folks that's like, oh, I really thought we solved this. Like one of my teachers, she was like, I thought my generation like handled all these problems. Now in my mind, it's like, well, how did you think your generation handled all these problems when since your generation we've been continuously saying it's a problem? But because you think something is solved or handled, you don't see it because it doesn't conform with the way that, or the image of reality or the world that you wish to hold. And again, Saturn sort of carrying that energy of putting it in our faces to the point where we have to make a choice. We have to make a decision. There's no way we don't see what we've seen. There's no way we don't know what we know. We can act like we don't know it. We can act like we aren't seeing it. We can call it an illusion. We can call it a distraction. We can call it whatever. But if the world is hurting around you and you wouldn't listen, you wouldn't watch, you wouldn't care, like that's an energy that leads to more energies. Like the inside and the outside are not so disconnected that you can do something on the outside or not do something on the inside and then do or not do something on the inside and expect like for there to be no sort of crossover or no conversation. And I think that's another thing for us to learn, or another thing that we're in the space of learning. It's like sometimes we try to put on the blinders because we're a horse in a race, but everything happening outside, it's still there. And ignoring it kind of sort of makes it worse. It's increasing the tension on the polarity of your internal and your external when you would ignore or bypass one for the other. It doesn't make it go away. And that goes back to that Eight of Zones energy. It causes the earth to not be as stable as it could be or as it should be. It introduces a lot of sinkholes and pitfalls where it's weak. It's like the visage of solid ground is there, but if you actually step on it, you would you would start to sink in it, and you would be like, "Oh yeah, no, there's no substance here. It's not fixed here." It's almost like the energy of a mirage, but if you walk into a mirage, it's like it breaks. Once you get in like quicksand, though, once you're in the mud, you're in the mud, and the more you struggle, the harder it is to get out of. This was not super positive, but that's fine. They're not all going to be super positive. I think the positivity, honestly, it lies in the resolution of all these things. I kind of sort of personally think it's better for us to know where we're lacking, where we're falling, where things are going to fall apart. Because then if we address it, things can actually get better and get better in a substantial way or in a substantiative. Is that the word? In a substantiative way, in a way where it's actually getting better and we're not just convincing ourselves into thinking it's getting better. But then when you go and interact with it, you realize how hollow it is. Also, the heart, Cancerian energy. I talked about it. Not only the heart, it's also the element of connection. And it's also the element of, it's kind of sort of curation, kind of sort of presentation, kind of. I mean, Capricorn is also in this. So there is an element of presentation here. And with that Sagittarian energy, it's like it can put on a front or it can put on a performance and a show of how cultured it is. But when it comes to what it actually does, it's flighty, it's elusive, it's not there. But with this Sage of Souls energy, I think it's something that we're feeling the pull towards. And again, that takes me back. It's like it's this it feels like Pong. It's like it's bouncing back and forth between the internal and the external, but it's not making enough of an impact to really change either because it's trapped. It doesn't get outside. But going back over here, I need to stay talking about what I'm talking about, or else I completely lose the thought because I lost it. I just lost that. What was I just talking about? Cancer, Capricorn, the presentation, the illusion, Sagittarius, there's no substance to it. It puts on the front of like, look how much I've traveled, look how much I've done. But it's like it's a show. Oh, the Sage of Souls and the Knight of Souls. That's the performance over here. And it's reflected in the difference between the Sage of Souls and the Scholar of Souls. Where the sage is where we think we are. Sages are what we are trying to be, but it's become, again, more performative. We're saying the right words. We're using buzzwords and we're doing buzz activities. But I don't know if the substance is there to actually serve as a solid foundation on the earth. And so maybe it's a time to, as we go into this new astrological year, to put substance into the things that we do and to be rather than seem to be. And that's where I'm gonna end this. I do want to get like one final card, I guess, though. Ooh, all the cards. What's this? Okay. So chain links, a divine codex, an arrow pierces the heavens and breaks the clouds, bringing order to thought, proper delegation of tasks, seeing the internal through the external, and embodying hope, a fount of truth, a tongue of light. Also, there was an 888 on this card right here. On the Four of Swords, an arrow that swims through the air, forced pliability, and a fixed vision in a volatile space. That forced pliability carries the energy of the volcano. Because forced pliability, it's like when two things meet and they're not budging, but they meet with such a force that it forces them upwards because they refuse to concede. Because they refuse to concede to the other, they both fold. Now, depending on where that happens, how deep in the water or what lies under the water, as far as like oceanic vents or whatever, it can cause destruction. But yeah, there's the 888. The numbers are cut off in this one because I got lazy. I was like, oh, I put those kind of low, but maybe they'll still pop up on the card. Some of them they got cut off. But there's the 888 talking about how eights are traps and stuff like that. You start where you stop, you end where you began, and you don't really notice it because you make so much movement. It's like you move so much that you don't realize you're sort of going in circles. Who is this? Should I take it? I ain't even shuffle. Oh, this is my least favorite card in the deck, but it was the most interesting to create. It's the Jack of Hearts. An inn that welcomes weary travelers, a hot tub that soaks all of one's worries away, and a sly grin. And this it carries the energy. There have been like TV shows there's been like anime mostly, and like old, usually, well, it's anime, so it's Japanese. I don't know if I've necessarily seen it too much mirrored here, like in America, but I don't think we really hold on to too much old things. It has to be like old English. It's like a Little Red Riding Hood, where the wolf was the grandma type of, not really, but it's like there are weary travelers making, oh, the Ten of Wands, a spiritual journey. There's this journey that we're on, and it's one that requires great energy, effort, dedication, determination, longevity. And at the point where you are the most tired, where you are the most in need of respite, there's an end. There's a rest stop off to the side. Take this exit, and you get there. The hot tub is amazing. You are like relaxing. The food is great. It feels like heaven after the journey that you've been on, and after the journey that you've been on, you don't want to leave. The problem is a lot of people don't. They stop off at the rest stop and they build a home there. And the innkeepers, it basically feeds off of their energy. It's a well devised trap because it knows what your elements are, it knows what your woes are. It'll address all of them. And as humans, we give in to our need for comfort or comfortability. And so we stop for much longer than we need to, or much longer than we really can. Because once you get so comfortable, you never get up, you never leave. And it was a rest stop along the journey, along the way. At some point, we lose the way. Dawn before the first day of a new world, an old earth passed away, a breathtaking sight. 4413, which is another 4261 and 2. And it's the four of diamonds. It was in reverse. Sometimes I read these in reverse, sometimes I don't. Again, this inn It also reminds me of, I think it's Spirited Away, but it reminds me, it was also in A Wrinkle in Time. It's this energy of like, again, you're tired and you're hungry, but the food doesn't have any substance. It passes right through you as if you were a ghost. It never fills you, so you never stop eating. And instead of like realizing that it's not fulfilling you and getting up and going to get something that actually will, fulfill you, you just keep eating to try to fill what becomes an increasing void. And that's when we get stuck more in the pattern. Speaking of eight being habits and patterns, we get stuck more in the pattern, the habit, the way we were taught to fulfill something. And we keep hamster wheeling our way trying to get it rather than just being like, you know what? This isn't giving me what I was told it would give me, what I thought it would give me. So I'm going to move on to something that actually fulfills me. But like that's not okay. I didn't like shuffle these. That just came out. What is this? And I think honestly in my personal life, maybe that's something that's kind of sort of coming up a little bit because I'm in this position where I can literally do anything. And I'm positioned like I'm about to begin. And it's like, well, where do I want to begin? I think there are some things that I want, some things that are important to me that I'm not necessarily considering as much as I should. And it can be really easy to manifest something that, again, it has no substance. And I woke up to like, first of all, I woke up to a text from some people that I ain't talked to them since summer of 2011. I ain't worked for them since summer of 2011. I ain't heard from them since like 2012, 2013. I wake up to an email that's like, hey, we found some stuff. First of all, the email was like, call me. I'm like, what is this? And then it was like, hey, like we have some jobs and positions, call this number. I wake up to a text. Hey, like, we have you in our system saying that you're looking for employment. Call us. We have some positions. And for me, it's weird. It's interesting. I promise there are times when I don't even know if I'm manifesting opportunities or it's like opportunities will start popping up, like popping up, popping up, popping up, popping up. Sometimes I'm in a space of like, well, what do I do? Like there's something that I want to do. Oh my gosh, I'm the Israelites. And I was talking about if I was the Israelites, if I was Moses, I would have just went to the promised land. I wouldn't have cared whatever. And it's literally in my life, it's a metaphor, but it's literally the same thing. It's like I feel led, I feel guided to go somewhere. But I'm like, ooh, the space isn't ready yet. I don't know. Something about it ain't right yet. And that's what they did. They didn't go when God told them to go, so they had to wander the wilderness for 40 years. I'm not trying to do that. So I just need to get the courage, get the strength, get the bravery to do what it is that I feel guided and led to do. Everything else will work out. I don't have to know. And it's so interesting. Sometimes it's like I'll sort of like get off a little bit. And then it's like, oh, look at this, look at that. Like, oh, we got opportunities. We got this. Oh, you wanted to do this at one time, right? You can do this. It's all open to you now. And again, it's that rest stop that people sort of get to and they never leave because it presents them what they're wanting in the moment. That's crazy. And I noticed it last May, maybe even last April. I was like, why now all of a sudden where I'm in this space where I'm in this space where my resolve is weakening. I'm like, maybe I don't know what I think I know. Maybe it don't make sense. Maybe I'm wrong. And it's like as soon as I start to doubt really or to question, or as soon as I give in to the impatience or give in to just like wanting to know, that's when all of this other stuff pops up. But when it pops up, something about it, like, it doesn't pop up in a way where it feels like it's right. It pops up in a way where it feels like temptation. It feels like it's wearing the guise of something that's meant to be enticing. It's meant to draw me away, pull me away from whatever it is that I'm feeling led to and guided to, that I don't have the resolve to really take on in the moment. But so far, I've recognized, like, this isn't it. I know where my happiness is. And fortunately or not, it's not going to really work out either way. Or it's not really going to work out any other way. And I don't know everything. I feel the next step. And what's most interesting is I've been doing like exercise again. I was supposed to be cooking more. That ain't necessarily happened. But I haven't eaten out as much. I got like some mushrooms and stuff that I want to cook. They didn't have the white mushrooms, so I got like mini portobellas. I've never had a portobello mushroom. So anyway, it's like as soon as I recentered myself on the path that I know is for me, I don't even feel comfortable saying I know that it's for me. Again, going back to the Sage of Souls and the Scholar of Souls, I don't think I actually vocalized this thought, but the Sage of Souls is the actual path. That is where we're supposed to be heading, and it's calling to us. It's speaking to us, and it's pulling us beyond a lot of our fears, a lot of our worries, a lot of our insecurities. It's calling us beyond that, which is another reason why like shadow work and everything else is so important right now, because it's time for us to actually sort of move into um, the next phase. But it lies beyond our limitations. We can't get there holding on to all of the doubt and stuff that we were holding on to now. And it's not that we're not supposed to question, or it's not that we won't sort of doubt, but it's to have the strength and the trust to do it anyway. Life will unfold. But after I sort of like recommitted, I guess, redoubled down on the things that feel right now, that's when I feel like it was like, oh, well, I could do this. I could look into this. That might actually work. What's so wild though, and this again, it's another reason why I made integrate my word for 2020, because I do it frequently, but it's something that I was already like, oh yeah, I should do that. That feels right. That feels right. I've already come to this realization before though. Some point along the way, it's not that I necessarily forgot, but upon the completion of my actual degree again, and me being where I am now, it's not that I didn't think I would complete my degree, but it's something I worked for like 9 years to get, almost 10 years, like 9.5 years. And so doing it for that long, again, it's not that I didn't think I would have it, but it was, I lived more life not having it than actually having it. And I guess that's everything in life. I don't have any of the things that I'm going to have tomorrow or beyond, or even later tonight and beyond. Um, And so, where was I going? Where were you going, Patrick? What were you talking about? A lot of things actually opened up. And so it made me sort of think of and consider different paths and different approaches, kind of a Seven of Cups energy. But in looking at different approaches and looking at different paths, somewhere along the way, I didn't necessarily lose sight of why I was making the why I'm making the decision that I'm making. I didn't lose sight of the why, but the I guess the how kind of came in, and honestly, in some ways, limited thinking came in. Thinking of how the path is supposed to work, or what my professional career, like the track that it can follow to get me to where I want to be ultimately by the end, And honestly, it's a lot of settling. I did college for like 9 years. I'm extremely capable and I'd say very knowledgeable. I'd say fairly knowledgeable and very able to acquire knowledge. But my transcript doesn't reflect my abilities. And so there are some ways that I've, and some other people, and basically the system itself has convinced me to sort of settle and to limit myself. And because I've been doing that, not necessarily extremely, but even a little bit, I've been in a space of considering things that honestly I shouldn't be considering. And I was talking to one of my friends and I was telling him, he was like, wow, Pat, they're like trying to cheat you. Like they're trying, he was like, you need to know your worth because what is that? And I was like, I know, but like that's what he told me. So I was like, sure. And like part of me was like, it's not forever. What I need now more than anything is experience anyway. And it's funny because in some ways I'm not so compromising. But I guess when it comes to my worth, I can be or something. And I need not be. I don't have to. It's not that like I'm not going to like meet people where they are. That's not the type of compromise I'm talking about. But I don't have to compromise in a way that doesn't honor my value and my worth. Because if anything, I should know what I'm capable of and worthy of. And I should also, like, I know what I want. Again, that in between is where all of the mystery lies. But it was just interesting that, and like, I've been feeling a lot of emotional, like, I've been like very emotional lately. I'm a Pisces, but I'm a Taurus moon and rising. And it's not that Taurus isn't emotional, but sometimes it's like my comfort level with emotion fluctuates. And especially with certain types of emotion. With certain types of emotion, I have more of a capacity than others. Um, but again, like after I recentered, after I refocused, what's wildest is that I've been asking myself a lot of questions, and I got the answer in a way that I didn't necessarily expect to find the answer. And so I'm in here like, well, let me check the transits. I'm like, well, Venus just entered Pisces. The sun is in Pisces. We're about to have a new moon in Pisces. Maybe that's where all these emotions are coming from. And I was like, well, maybe that's it. But then after I reached the conclusion that I reached, after I remembered or realized what I realized, it's like, wait, I've been asking myself this question a lot lately. This appears to be the answer to that question. And then it's like, once I remembered that, once I accepted it, it's just like, it was gone. It was cool. I'm like, where's all this crazy energy that's been like, not high key rocking me, but that's been this constant sort of like feeling lately? I'm like, where did all that go? And it's like, oh, well, I guess that was my answer. I got my answer. And I can move brazenly and boldly down that unknown path again. So the card that came out, oh, well, here we go. It's the Nine of Swords, or the Nine of Spades again. A swaying tower that is moments from toppling, clouded vision and burning lands, and a powder keg. A powder keg is an energy of something that can kind of sort of blow up at a moment's notice. Um, and the swaying tower, again, it's something that could topple. That is moments from toppling. Burning lands, though, it's carrying an energy. Clouded vision and burning lands, the burning lands is carrying an energy of a space that we want to be in. It's like what we're passionate about, what we're cultivating, but in a way that we live on it. And that clouded vision, again, it's like not knowing how to get there. The powder keg is that, like, whatever is going to happen or transpire, again, it can happen at any moment. Maybe a lot quicker than you would believe. But with this swaying tower, it's like there's an element of trust here. There's an element of faith here. There's also an element of needing to be able to let go of anything in opposition or any kind of resistance at a moment's notice. Because again, we don't necessarily know the way it's going to work out. And so, why would we be attached or so extremely attached to certain things just because we're comfortable with the amount of knowing that we have? But again, that takes us down that 8 of zones energy where we're manifesting quicksand and pitfalls and tar pits. But again, it's like when we lose something to the earth, it preserves it to be excavated later. Bottom of the deck is operating as a unified whole, living the example, a heart that shines from the depths of the soul. There's a 444 in this 34, 9, 11, 4, 6, and 4. What is 34? 34 is the teacher of essences. So we have the sage of souls, and now the energy of the teacher of essences is here. The teacher of essences, the hermit, Aquarius, the heart, the third eye, and the element of fire. The heart and the third eye, it causes us to see things in a way that's completely different. It's almost like we also see pathways that we never would have necessarily seen before. 9 and 11, the hermit and Aquarius, it carries an energy of surprise, of shock, of sudden change that seemingly comes out of nowhere. But it's like somebody knew. Somebody knew. For those who aren't in the know, it came out of nowhere. It was completely unexpected. And then the energy of the teacher of essences, that's that energy of living the example. Because it's like, again, like living from that heart space, seeing from that heart space, embodying that energy puts you in the space of like being a beacon that is sought out rather than being someone who tries to force things on other people. It brings people to you. It gets people to inquire or ask you. And that's kind of sort of what revolutionizes this space because now it's not something that we're forcing. What's at the top of the deck? Now I'm curious. Embodying hope, a fount of truth, a tongue of light. Love that. Oh, and look. Well, it's a 2, but there's an energy of a 9 and an 11 in the two ones. And it reminds me of Disney's Hercules. I've been trying to watch that movie, but ain't none of the links good. All of the links is like something else. I'm like, I'm just trying to watch Hercules. Hercules for me, it's the movie that I watched. Hercules is not my favorite movie. It's a movie that I enjoyed. I like Greco-Roman mythology. I like mythology in general. I like different sort of like religious and spiritual systems. But my freshman year of high school, it was like my comfort movie. And so I watched it a lot. I watched it often enough that I memorized the DVD number out of the hundreds of DVDs that we had. I think it was 438, but I'm not quite sure, which is a 15, interestingly enough. Um, but like when I went to the desk, they were like, "Oh, you getting Hercules?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm getting Hercules." It also became the movie that I put on the background, like I put it on whenever I'm actually doing work. Like usually after a period of a several weeks long depression in which I missed lots of class, I put on Hercules, I'm catching up. I'm cramming through like weeks and weeks and weeks of material in my room before an exam that I have like within the next few days. And I'm trying to recover. I'm trying to bounce back after putting myself in the pit of all things, right? But anyway, I've watched that movie so much for so long. And I've known Roman numerals for a while too. But in the movie at one point they're like, somebody call IXII. And I never got it. Ever. Until one day I'm like, oh, IXII. That's 911. Somebody call 911. There's an emergency. I was like, oh my gosh. I can be that slow sometimes, honestly. And like when you see something like they call it the sidewalk because it's where you walk and it's on the side of the street. And I'm like, oh my gosh, mind blown. What? What? I can't believe it. It was right there in the name the whole time and I never saw it. I go nuts for stuff like that. It's just like the simplest things sometimes just blow my mind. And it reminds me of like how we can overly complicate things sometimes to the point where the solution or the answer is so simple and so just like right there in your face. But you're thinking at like 20,000 leagues beneath the sea and it's like right there, like on the beach. And you're like, oh. So I literally passed this before I got into the water and went as deep as I went. Wow. You learn something new every day, don't you? All right, with that, I've rambled on enough. Hopefully, if you watch this, you find something of resonance. I hope that this finds you well. If you're not well, I hope you do better soon. If you are well, I still hope you do better soon. I hope you're doing everything that you need to do internally and externally in between to get where you want to be who you want to be, to experience what you want to experience. Because at the end of the day, the ways in which you limit yourself will dictate your experience a lot more than many of the other things that you may think actually limit your experience. So I'll catch y'all later. That was fun. I've been wanting to use the dice for a minute. I don't know if fun is the word that I would use, but I don't know. Bye.